All right, so we're diving into drug testing at work.
Yeah.
How employees actually feel about those policies. We've got some good research lined up.
Yeah.
Like this one study, it's from a petroleum company. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, this one by Guinness and Hemel. It's interesting how they look at perception, you know? It's not just the drug testing program itself.
Okay.
It's how employees see it. And that affects everything. Their attitude, even how well they do their job.
So wait, two people working at the same place, same rules,
Right.
could feel totally different about the drug testing.
Absolutely. One person might think it's totally fair, keeps things safe. The other person, they might think it's like Big Brother, way too nosy. And guess what? That second person,
Yeah.
they're probably going to be stressed, resentful, not doing their best work.
Makes sense. Yeah, let me put it that way.
Hmm.
But before we go too deep into this whole perception thing,
Sure.
why are employers even doing drug testing? Is it really a big problem? I mean, it's not like everyone's showing up to work high.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you'd be surprised. Substance abuse at work it's more common than people think.
Really?
Not just a few cases here and there. This 2002 study by Sam HSA found 77% of substance abusers had jobs.
Wow, 77%. Way more than I thought. So it's not just a small issue then.
Not at all. And it affects everything. Accidents, healthcare costs, how much work gets done. And get this, substance abusers filed 5 times more workers' comp claims, and they used 300% more medical benefits than their coworkers who weren't using substances.
Wow, those numbers are scary. So yeah, employers have a reason to worry about this.
Exactly. And that brings us back to perception. If a company wants a safer workplace, a more productive one, and drug-free, it's not enough to just, make a rule.
Right.
They got to understand how employees see that rule.
Okay, so let's get into that. How these individual perceptions are different. This study talks about locus of control, specifically something called the chance dimension. Can you explain that? What does it even mean, and how does it connect to all this?
Sure, locus of control, it's basically how much control people think they have over their own lives.
Okay.
The chance dimension, that's how much someone believes that luck or fate or whatever is running the show.
So, like, if I think a lot of what happens to me is just random, I'd have a high belief in chance.
You got it. And what Guinness and Hemel found was people who think that way, they tend to see drug testing programs in a negative light.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Is it just because they feel like they can't control whether they get tested or not?
Part of it, yeah. Imagine you already feel like life is like rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Then you get hit with a random drug test. Feels like more of the same, right? Fate deciding things, not your own choices.
That makes sense. So our beliefs about the world, they shape how we see things at work too.
Exactly. And that's why companies being open and honest about all this, it's so important.
Okay, so we've talked about this belief in chance. But the study also mentions another personality type, authoritarianism. What's that about, and how does it fit into how people see drug testing?
Okay, authoritarianism, it basically describes people who, they really value following the rules, obedience to authority, that kind of thing.
Heck.
You'd think, logically, these folks would love drug testing programs.
Yeah, rules are rules. Seems like it'd be right up their alley.
Well, here's where it gets interesting. The study actually found the opposite. People high in authoritarianism, they viewed the drug testing program more positively.
Wait, really? That's kind of surprising. Why would that be?
It's a good question, and honestly, the study doesn't really say for sure, but maybe for these folks, a clear drug testing program, especially one that's strict, it actually gives them a sense of control,
Yeah, I can see that. Like, here are the rules, here are the consequences, no surprise.
Exactly. It's predictable.
Okay, so we've got these individual personality traits, but what about, our overall attitude and the people around us? Do those things affect how we see drug testing?
Oh, absolutely. Turns out our general feelings about drug testing, plus what happens to people we know, that can really change how we see a specific program.
Okay, so like, what do you mean by general attitudes?
Pretty simple. If you generally think drug testing is good, like a necessary thing, you're probably going to view your company's program in a positive way. But it gets tricky when you add in social influence.
Social influence, you mean like peer pressure or something?
Kinda, but it's more than that. The study found that if you know anyone who failed a drug test at your company, you're more likely to see the whole program negatively.
Makes sense. Nobody wants to see their friend or coworker go through that. Is there like a psychological reason for that?
There is. It's called the reinforcement effect model. Basically, we connect things with how they make us feel.
Okay.
So if you see someone you know having a bad experience because of a program, you might start connecting that program with those bad feelings, even if you haven't had a bad experience yourself.
Wow, that's really interesting. So even if I generally think drug testing is fine, if my friend gets fired because of failed test, I might totally change my mind about my company's program.
Exactly. It's all connected. And that's why it's so important for employers to think beyond just the policy itself.
Yeah.
How it's implemented, how it affects everyone, that matters too.
Okay, that makes sense. So what does all this mean for employers? If perception is this important, what can they actually do with this information?
Big takeaway. Perception matters.
Uh,
Companies can't just, write up a policy, put it up on the wall, and expect everyone to be happy about it.
right.
They need to talk to employees, help them understand.
So it's not just the policy, it's how you explain it to people.
Exactly. Guinness and Henle, they have two recommendations. First, educate employees about the good parts of drug testing. Don't just focus on the bad stuff.
Okay.
Talk about how it makes the workplace safer, protects the company, maybe even helps employees who are struggling get support.
So present it as a positive, not just a punishment. What's the second thing?
Think about what happens if someone fails a test. Is it just you're fired, or is there a chance to get help?
Right.
That can really change how employees see the program.
That's a good point. Zero tolerance is one thing, but offering support, that could be way more effective for getting to a drug-free workplace.
And it builds trust, makes employees feel like things are fair, which, like we've seen, leads to better attitudes and less negativity about the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We always focus on punishing people, not helping them.
It's definitely something to think about, from both sides. As an employer, as an employee, what kind of workplace do we want? How do we get there and still treat everyone right?
A lot to think about for sure. So it sounds like employee perceptions of drug testing are way more complicated than we think.
Absolutely. It's not just about catching people breaking the rules. It's about a workplace where everyone feels safe, but also respected.
Companies need to be smart about their policies then. Consider all these things we've talked about.
For sure. It's not easy, no simple answer. But understanding how employees feel about drug testing, that's how companies can make programs that work but are also fair to everyone.
So today we've learned that drug testing in the workplace, it's not just about the science of the tests. It's about psychology. It's about individual people. It's about how everyone interacts. It's about people, really.
Exactly. And by understanding all of that, the individual differences, the social stuff, how perception works, companies can make drug testing policies that are effective but also ethical.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for today. You've got a deeper understanding now of how drug testing and people, how those two things connect at work. It's not just about catching rule breakers. It's about creating a culture where employees feel supported, respected, and safe.
And maybe, just maybe, a more supportive approach. That's how we get to truly drug-free workplaces where everyone can do well.